Hello, everyone out there. This is Coach David coming at you. I want to talk about a new podcast that I've just started. It's called Build with a Plan. You can tell by the title on top of my head here. And what is this all about? Well, this is my origin story. This is why I decided that it was time for someone like myself to build a podcast that can help other business owners create success in their business like I did, without all the pain and all the costs and all the pitfalls that I went through as I was growing my business. That's right. This is my origin story. A lot of times there'll be movies that have trilogies and they were successful and they decided, you know what, we need to gain a bit more from traction from this franchise. So let's do an origin story. And that comes usually after success of the trilogy. Well, I'm here to start with the origin story. Why do I do what I do? Why am I Coach David? Why do I spend my time learning different strategies, learning about business, learning about finance? Why do I do all that? And why am I willing to share with everybody that I can talk to? Well, it all starts as me, as a young person, as an entrepreneur. I had the mindset of I wanted to work for myself from the very beginning of my career. So what I did was I went to school. I decided that graphic design was where I wanted to go. I was pretty good. It was pretty creative. So I started doing a course. I took a course in college. I got a diploma in graphic design right at the very beginning. This goes back to the beginning of time where, yes, I'm not talking about, way back then. I'm talking about the beginning of the computer age, the desktop publishing age in graphic design. I was one of the first ones in my class, in my school, to embrace technology as a way to make things easier. Anyways, so I learned how to do that. I learned the skills of what made good design. We had life drawing, so I got to really understand how to look at things, how to see things, and I was able to combine that with illustration, with painting, graphic design, typography, all that fun stuff. So I had a really good base. And this is like a lot of the entrepreneurs I talk to on a regular basis. They were really good at what they were doing, then they decided to start a business. So I didn't go right into starting my own business. I knew that I wanted to, but I didn't have enough in the beginning. So I actually worked for somebody for a number of years, got some experience, worked for a large printer, just doing small parts of a bigger project. And then I ended up working with a smaller printer, which allowed me to work on a lot of projects start to finish. And that really helped me understand the entire process of talking to the client, getting a concept down on the computer, showing them the proof, making changes, getting it to film. This is back in the film days, doing a proof from the film, and then having the client sign off on that. And then it would go to the printing press. They would actually make film from that. Or they had film from that, then they would print that onto plates, and then the plates would then print onto paper. Well, then it would go onto a blanket, and then it would go on to the paper. It was quite the process back then. But I understood that entire process, and that gave me a very good base, much like most of the entrepreneurs out there. They have a pretty good base of what they're doing in their specific business. Now, I said, okay, it's time to go. Let's jump into running a business. So I came up with what I thought was a creative name. I decided to get out there. I started talking to people, doing some networking. And of course, as most businesses, when you start off in the beginning, it's slow. But as long as you do a decent job with a decent price, you could typically grow your business just by doing that. And that's what I did. I got pretty good. I got pretty quick at what I was doing. And I was able to offer a service that was, intriguing or appealing to a lot of people. So that's really how I started my business, and that's what I used to grow my business. I didn't have a plan. let me reset there. I had a plan. It was in my head, and it was, okay, I want to be a successful graphic designer with a studio. I'm going to have lots of money, lots of free time. And that was my goal. It was all in my head, and that's what I thought. All I needed to do was work hard, grow the business, and then all of that would just happen automatically. So that's how I started out on my business. That was the very beginning of my origin story. But what I didn't know was there was a lot of things that I didn't know. I'm sure you've heard that saying before, you don't know what you don't know. Well, when you're first starting out in business, there are a lot of things that you don't know that you don't know. And that's a problem. And that's why I'm here, hopefully helping you, the entrepreneur that's, maybe starting out, maybe they're a couple years into their business, or maybe they're 10 years in their business and they're not sure what to do next, or they're looking back and going, why don't I have the financial and the time freedom that I desired when I started this? And let's face it, that's what most people want as they start their business. They want the freedom. They want to be able to take time off if they want to. They want to be able to have the financial freedom to have the toys that they want or the vacation that they want, to be able to spend money doing what they love to do, what makes them enjoyment that's outside of business. Really, let's face it, that's why most people start a business. But what I soon learned that I could enjoy some of the revenue benefits or the financial freedom. I was not seeing any of the time freedom. I was working hard. It was just me in the very beginning. And then I brought on a couple of employees and I was able to build that graphic design, that studio part of my business to a decent level. I connected with this person, I connected with that person. There was no advertising, there was no predictable sales, there was no upsell, no downsell, there was no strategy at all to what I was doing. I just kept saying to myself, the more people I meet, the more people I talk to, the more business that I do, the bigger my business will get, the more revenue that I'll bring in, and the more time freedom that will eventually come. But that's where the mistake was. I didn't have the plan. I didn't have something in place to understand what steps I needed to take to ensure that, first of all, do I have a profitable business? And second of all, am I able to step away from my business long enough to start enjoying some of that time freedom that can now come from your financial freedom? See, one of the key mistakes that I made is I did not have two things. I did not focus on two things. One was profitability of the business. And I think a lot of business owners, and I've come across this with quite a few of the business owners that I work with on the coaching level, is what they do is they go, look, my sales is trending higher than last year. This is great. No worries. My accountant last year said that I made this amount of money, or this is what I paid in taxes. And that's what they use as their financial statement. Well, I'm going to tell you right now that that is completely and utterly wrong. That's a huge mistake. What you need to do is make sure you understand how profitable you are, not only year over year. You really should be looking at it, if not quarterly, you should be looking at it monthly and possibly even weekly if you truly want to build your business. So what I did was I looked at the numbers. I looked at my accounts receivables. And this is where the misnomer is. And this is where a lot of the business owners get caught up on. They look at their accounts receivable. Oh, I have X amount of money coming in. Okay, I know I owe my accounts payable. The money that I owe is here. And the money coming in is larger than that. So I go, okay, the difference there is what the profit's going to be. But there are a couple fundamental issues with that. First of all, you're looking at receivables that you're not sure if they're coming in this week, next week, a month from now, 2 months from now. So you don't know for sure. And what happens is, by the time that money comes in, if it's next month, you now have more payables that have come in between now and that next month. So getting a really good handle on your finances, understanding what numbers you need to look at, is one of the massive, massive hacks that you need to know as a business owner. And the second huge mistake that I was making is that I was building my business solely around me as the main person. I was the main point of contact. I was the only person that ordered materials or that type of stuff. Because I built my business from just the design into doing short run digital, large format printing. I had a fairly decent sized business, but the problem was I was the main person. Even though I had staff that did design work, I had staff that looked after some of the administration, that type of stuff. But what I didn't put in place was more of a manager or someone that could look after the entire process so I could step back. And because of that, I wasn't able to take very much time off. I worked. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm sure like yourself, you enjoy the work. The work fuels you, right? But if you don't take that time off, if you're not able to remove yourself and reset, recharge, then you're going to burn yourself out and you're not going to be as efficient and as creative as you need to be to continue to grow your business. Now, I was naive enough and not knowing these types of strategies to be aware of, and I burned myself out. I was doing too much. I was ordering. I was actually doing installation. I was up on the scissor lift, installing graphics on Windows. I was helping with some design work. I was, out there talking to all the clients. I was delivering product. I was going down and picking up supplies. There was all these things that I was doing. So I was very busy. Yes, I was working 60 hours a week. And yes, there was decent revenue coming in. But what I hadn't set up was that, first of all, it wasn't profitable enough. My pricing wasn't right. So the profit wasn't there to help sustain where I wanted to go with the business. And second of all, I hadn't set up the processes so that I could step back, that I could recharge, that I could take that time to relax, to make sure that I could keep moving forward to keep the business going. And because of that, I ended up burning myself out to the point where it physically made me ill to sit down at the computer and try to do any work. So what I had to do is I had to sell the business. And here's the kicker on this. I had worked on this business for 25 years. I grew it from just, a baby of a business. I got through the hard years. 2 to 5 years, I got through that. 5 to 10 years, I was able to build the business. And from 10 to 20 years, I got it to a certain level that it was doing fine. It was chugging along at a decent pace. And I know a lot of you business owners out there that are listening to this, you got there as well. You were able to get the business to a certain level and you were seeing the revenue from it, but you weren't seeing the profit, the huge profit that you should be getting, and you didn't see the time freedom that you should be getting from that financial freedom if you could have it. Okay? And because of that, when I burned myself out, I wanted to sell the business. I wanted to go, you know what? I worked hard on this. Let me get let me reap some benefit from what I had done for 25 years. But the reality was, because I didn't have the processes in place, because I was the main thrust behind the business, my business wasn't worth what I thought it should be. And I ended up selling the business for far less than it was worth. It was very difficult. It was a painful thing to do. In hindsight, I'm glad I did it because I needed to step away from that. I burned myself out to the point where I ended up losing my marriage. which meant, of course, there's a income implication, but more importantly, there's a family implication. My kids mean the world to me. And what that meant was that I was only able to see my kids half the time. Yes, the wife, the marriage part, the partnership part, that was painful as well. But the bigger pain was that I wasn't able to see my kids every day. And that was huge. And because of all that, there was a huge impact on my finances because of that situation. So I literally had to start over again and start building myself out. Now, I couldn't get back into design work or printing or marketing because I had burnt myself out to the point where, as I said, I was physically ill and I could not do that type of business. So what I did instead was I got into renovation, home renovation. I was able to work with my hands, and I did this for about 2 years. I was able to completely get away from the computer, get away from technology, and work with my hands and build things that way. Be creative, be solution oriented that way as opposed to on the computer or business wise. And that was very helpful for me. That was that reset that I needed for my mental well-being, because as I was able to reset, my brain, my passion came back to me and said, I need to help other business owners. But I'm not going to do it in the graphic design marketing side of things. I want to help business owners avoid the pitfalls, the mistakes, the huge gaps in knowledge that I suffered from. I paid this price. Folks out there, I paid this price. And I am going to do this podcast, and I'm building my business, my coaching business, for the sole purpose of helping you business owners out there to avoid paying the price that I did. I don't want people getting divorced. I don't want people to be stressed at home. I don't want business owners to avoid or sort of get into away from their family, right? Kids are important. Every kid out there needs both parents, and they need them to be there to help them grow up to be adults. That's how I always looked at being a parent. My job as a parent is to prepare my child to be the best adult that they can be. And that's why I want you to be able to build your business with a plan so that you can have the financial freedom and the time freedom, not only be able to work on your marriage, but work on your role as a parent, if you are a parent. But if you're not a parent, there are other things that you can do. You can give back to the community. You can help other business owners, whatever it is that you want to do, or even your recreation time. That actually helps the economy as well. If you're able to take time off, or if you're able to buy toys, boats or ATVs or that type of stuff, or RVs, that spurs on the economy. Being able to have a successful business, to be able to take the time to be able to play with the toys that you want. So no matter where you are in your life, whether you have kids or whether you don't have kids, whether you have grown kids, it doesn't matter. If you've got the financial freedom and the time freedom, not only will you be a better person, you'll be happier, your business will be successful, and that successful business will be able to employ people and give them a good life so that they can continue to live and be happy as well. And that is why that I do what I do, because I want to make sure that you out there aren't paying the same price that I paid. So I encourage you to listen on a regular basis to Build with a Plan with Coach David here, because I'm going to give you secrets, I'm going to give you tips, I'm going to give you tricks over the time so that hopefully you will learn from them, that you don't have to learn the same mistakes I did. Avoid the pitfalls, avoid the mistakes, and get to your success faster than I did. I want you out there as business owners, I want you to enjoy your financial and time freedom so that you could do whatever you want. Stay tuned to Build with a Plan as I build this out there so you can see how I am able to apply a lot of the knowledge and all the things that I have learned over the years to apply to you so that you can avoid the mistakes that I did. Because I want you to get out there and I want you to have the best business, the most successful business that you can have. And how I define success in a business is a business that is profitable and that can run without your day-to-day input. If you can't step away for a few weeks or even a few months, then really what you own is a job and not a business. So I'm going to encourage you to build that into a successful business that can run on its own so that you can enjoy the financial and time freedom and have everything that you dreamed of when you started your business in the first place. Until next time, Coach David out.